Yes.
My grandmother, I think, was the most important person in my life. And when she died, I wasn't even in the country. I couldn't be there. Um, I remember I was in university at the time, and I was going to school and I had to take a bus and I went into like a gas station to buy some gum. And a random man asked if I wanted a ride. And I said, sure, I'm going to the University of Ottawa. And he was like, I'll drive you there. And I got into the car and went with him. And nothing really happened. But afterwards, my boyfriend at the time was like, what the fuck did you do? You risked your life for no reason. And you got into a car with a creepy stranger who just offered like a total stranger a ride. You could have been dead. Anything could have happened. And that thought hadn't even occurred to me. It was like for some period of time, my self-protective instincts were completely gone. And recently, again, I went through a dark period, and it was this weird thing where there's a kind of feeling that you get when you are starting to recover. When on the one hand, you're half dead and half alive, and aren't really holding on to your body and your life anymore. And on the other hand, there's this part of you that's waking up and that has this like will to live, and that's rising up and that's holding on to people and that's saying this there's something here that I'm you and us and me together is somehow part of me kind of clawing out of this, like a little plant out of the ground that hasn't seen the light for a long time. And it's that particular feeling of being half in the ground, half trying to get out and see the sun again that I think this poem captures really well. It's Ruth Madievsky. Um, Everyone I love is drafting their own eulogies. In parking lots, in bedrooms, in supermarkets between the ground beef and the egg noodles. Let's try that again. So much comes down to a body handcuffing itself to its ghost. I want to tell you about the time the past was an earring under the bed. How I lived in the space between touching and not touching. How I wanted everyone I loved to wear me like a hat. Now I'm the darkness a city bus moves through, but not always. Not when I pass someone walking more than 3 dogs. Not when everyone I love is working full time as my lungs. In Los Angeles, someone's replaced all the oxygen with surgical grade stainless steel. Someone's tagged all the freeway overpasses, and I can't tell if they wrote Helen or help. Everyone I love is trying to shine me like a flashlight. Everyone I love is telling me to say ah. In my backyard, 40 ants are sharing a slice of watermelon. And I don't know why that makes me feel lonely, why I wish I was their size and with them, fighting for the juiciest piece with everyone I love, or just letting them have it. Carl, what do you think of this poem? Reactions?
This is Carl, and I wanted to say not only something about the poem, but also that story you just told about the process recovery is. Recovery to me, right? And we're talking about recovery from some kind of trauma, right? Like a loss of a loved one or of an idea of who you were, profession, a place, something core to your identity, right? To
Mm-hmm.
me, I used to see that as a linear process, right? It's something where for me, um, I lost my mom when I was 14, right? And the sort of pace that I get from this poem in some points, right? Talking about being the darkness in front of the bus and the way in which you move through those spaces. I remember that exact feeling. It's this feeling of, okay, something irreversible has happened. Some loss has occurred. And now there are these little things these daily things that come back into focus, right? But if you ask me what exactly that focus was, it's like I was looking through some kind of fog lens that was a little bit cracked at the same time. Because at that point, you talk about not only needing to get up and go to school, do things like a test. Ironically enough, I failed the algebra test that I took on the day my mom died. I had some other things going on that made any kind of formula a little bit hard to remember at the time. And I think at that point, part of me felt like I was looking for some kind of pause, right? And when I say pause, these things that are supposed to be daily, stuff like routine, stuff like studying, stuff like taking care of yourself, going to the gym, eating healthily, they become entirely secondary to this absence that is also somehow full, right? It's something that's with you, it's something that's there. And that desire that the poem mentions to just sort of have this moment where it's you and those you love fighting for something, right? Or letting the other ants have it. That kind of simplicity, I think, is what you get back as you go through that recovery process. Because instead of a day being something just to get through because of whatever you're dealing with or feeling that loss, it becomes something where you start looking at the value of studying again. Or you start looking at the value of those small moments that you take and that you can live and that you don't have to feel like you're fighting some kind of weight that's on you. And like I said, that's back when I thought it was linear, but every time I'm moving through a place the same way like that and feeling like the darkness in front of a bus in Madrid or Baltimore or wherever I'm at, it's that same kind of idea of returning to that spot where you look at those simple things as a way to build you back up instead of a huge weight that's bringing you down.
Teresa.
Wow. To, I guess, elaborate a little bit more on what Carl was talking about, recovery after a trauma. In my life, I've had a trio of traumas, maybe four, because my dad passed away first, and then my brother John unexpectedly from cancer, and then my mom, and then my cat. So it's funny when you go through mourning or that kind of trauma because someone passed away. You go through not only mourning for that person, you sort of mourn for the people that went before. So not only was I mourning for my mom, I was mourning for my brother and my father, because that was the interesting thing about the poem. I really loved the line about handcuffing the ghosts, handcuffing the ghosts, because especially since the most recent death of my mom and my cat, you sort of like handcuff yourself to the ghosts, because you don't want to lose them. You don't you don't want to recover to the point where you forget about them.
Yes.
And also recovery is an interesting thing, because you never do recover. You're forever altered, and you just sort of like learn how to live around that trauma, because it's a part of your life. It's a very interesting concept on how different people mourn or pre-mourn friends and family, or people who you love and that you're very close to. And it's individual, and I think different people react differently, because we're all individuals, and we all have very individual relationships to different people in our lives. And just because I experienced my dad passing away doesn't mean that when my mom passed away it's any better. Mm-hmm. or worse. It's different. So so I know that I'm not the only one who goes through, that kind of thing, when someone passes away. I know that, we've all been, I don't want to say traumatized, I'm touched by the passing of a loved one, maybe that's the better way to put it. I don't know, Dominia, what do you think about the poem and how that relates to, mourning?
Well, I was really struck by the verse when it says that she's between touching and not touching, because she describes really how I've been feeling after my grandfather died, for example. It's a sort of like in between dimension where you have to live, but at the same time you're like everything is it's like the sounds and the colors and everything around you doesn't feel the same. And sometimes it feels less, and sometimes it feels way more than in a situation of not mourning. And I actually relate a lot also to the story that you told us, Alina, about like getting a ride in a stranger's car, because that happened to me when I was working in Ireland as a cabin crew for Ryanair, and it was one of the most depressing times of my life. I was so lonely, and one morning I was ready to go to the airport, and I was waiting for the bus, and I missed it because in Ireland, they drive on the opposite side of the road, and I was still confused about it. And a car stops right in front of me after I missed a bus, and someone says, "Hey, hello, do you want to ride?" And I thought it was someone I knew, maybe like the owner of the house I was staying in, and it wasn't. It was just, a stranger. And I hopped in, and the first thing I thought when, he started driving was, okay, this is not gonna end well, and he's probably gonna kill me and my family who's away, and they're gonna think how stupid that was of her to just, get into a stranger's car. And that's when I realized that kind of the life that I was living there was not it was not what I wanted. And also there was this realizing that all my expectations, going abroad and having the first job after university and, being independent and stuff, it was not what I actually had expected to be. So all my illusions were actually ghosts, or a ghost of a life that I had imagined and that I was not living. So a lot of things that I really relate to.
Yeah, isn't it great when you think something is gonna make you happy? Then you end up completely depressed from having taken those decisions. Love that. No, but I love what you said about the in between space. There is kind of, because it's not like a simple depression exactly, right? It's that sometimes and unpredictably, like your variance just goes up, like the standard deviation of your emotions when you're going through something, whether it's a death or something else, goes up like exponentially. Like all of a sudden, some things you barely feel and some things you feel all the way, and some of the things you feel all the way are horrible, and then some of the things you feel all the way are like, oh my God, the lights in that storefront are the most beautiful thing. They're just twinkling. Like everything is going to be fine and everything is perfect actually, and the world is so beautiful, and that coexists with I was sobbing 10 minutes ago, and somehow it's all together. It's kind of just, it's crazy that happens. And I used to think some people were never, I mean, I've realized over time everybody's touched by this. Even people who've had relatively easy lives, we all suffer loss. Like the Buddha has said, we all go through something like this, and we all go through those periods for something, whether we have good like easy lives or not. There is no easy human life. Thaddeus, what are your thoughts?
Well, every time I read a poem and I get a few notes of resonance, but I don't quote unquote get it right away. I always wonder if those notes of resonance are my projections and if I'm actually understanding the author's intention. And, you know, so I get real neurotic about it. But
if Dr. Sophie was here, if Dr. Barast were here, she would say it doesn't matter.
That's right. Yeah. So, the way it resonates for me is that, let me get to that one. Let me find that one line. Yeah. Everyone I love is trying to shine me like a flashlight. Everyone I love is telling me to say, ah. So, you know, I fell down on my front steps and I hit my head a little over a week ago. And if I have a concussion, which I haven't had the opportunity to get diagnosed yet, it would be my 8th lifetime concussion. Ooh. And I'd be in danger of having Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome or wet brain. So I've gone through several concussions, and the note that I got from this was the same as when I've recovered from previous concussions, and it feels like I'm doing that a little bit now, which is everything looks the same, but everything is not the same, you know, in some subtle way that I can't quite put my finger on. And some of it is the thoughts that cross my mind, like, well, this isn't a thought, this isn't a mood, this isn't a constellation of ideas that I've had for years, you know, like I'm having these, I don't know what any other way to put it, constellations of ideas that I haven't had since I was, you know, really depressed and in my 20s. And then every once in a while, like when I'm having a conversation with Teresa, it's like, no, it's all there, right? All of my stuff is still there. And I come back to this thing that I've come to regard myself as normal. So that's everything that it you know, that this poem kicks off for me. And the thing is, like, through reading this, I've discovered that I actually love the poems that I have to wrestle with a little more than those that I like immediately, quote unquote, get. You know what I mean? So I think that this poem, my friend Richard, who lives a kitty corner across the street, I think I've told you about him, Richard Lamuto, who's a poet who lives on a starvation wage and grows all his own food and so on. And every conversation that I have with him is brilliant. He always talks about the poem Finding the Right Person. And he always says, well, you know, that poem, that it found its reader. It found its reader at the right time. So I have a feeling like this is one that I have a few notes to hang on to, and eventually I'll know how to sing along with it the whole way, I guess is the best way that I can put it.
By the way, my view is you don't have to. Like, it's okay not to. And I thought that this would be a controversial choice. I actually texted Katie. I'm not sure about the poem that I selected. But the thing is, it held on to me because I think actually, well, whatever, I'll save my final critique and opinion for the end. But I can relate to what you said. I mean, this poem didn't make sense to me on a first, second, or third reading. Like, as in, I couldn't understand what she was talking about, which is usually a type of poem I don't select, right? Because they usually don't pass the Chernikova test of like craft versus impact. And I think obfuscation, you really need to earn the right to it. Like if you say something that's not clear, there better be something inside. And so I wrestled with this, not in the way that, oh my God, I really have to understand it. Because I don't think we all have to understand everything. And maybe the author didn't quite pull it off. But to me, the impact, because that feeling of the in-between was so salient. And I think she captures something about that in-between. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I still, even after selecting it and reading it a few times, like I don't know exactly what she was talking about, but I can feel that thing of like standing in the aisle of a supermarket and you're twinkling in and out because you're like halfway there, halfway not there. Anyway, Katie, thoughts?
Yeah. So I got really angry with the poem. Like it must be the first time when I was reading the poem, I didn't think about death. And now everyone's talking about death. And I'm like, no, this is my topic. Like, how did I miss it? Because it reminds me of something completely different.
How did you not see? How did you of all people not see death in it? There's even the word both.
So no, but it made me really, I think it got me really angry because it reminded me of me. And I spent my last year in this very strange place, you know, dealing with this whole, okay, so I was sexually assaulted at university, didn't tell anyone, eventually did. And the last year this investigation started, and the whole year I sort of lost a sense of, yes, sort of lost a sense of who I was, what was I for. And I felt like in a very large way, first I was really grateful for this, and then I got really upset about this. Like I became some sort of trope, like a, like, I don't know, like a symbol, like a thing that people can now use to discuss certain topics. And I
am a Me Too woman, not Katie.
Yes, and like people, yes, hello. People would be like talking about things and asking me about this thing all the time, and I felt like I have some sort of way to respond to it, and then it became like an expectation that I have to respond in some ways. But like the more I was playing this role, the more I detached myself from how I felt, and people kept telling me what I should be feeling, and it was really good. But then I didn't feel like that, and then I was really disappointed with myself. And so I was always in this state, and I think I still am, of like not being myself. And it's strange, it's almost like people took me away from me, you know, even though, so it's very strange because it makes me feel how similar this is, this experience. When somebody sexually assaults you, it takes away your body from you. And then suddenly the same body is now reclaimed, but by someone else, not you, by some sort of, you know, group of feminists at university, which is amazing because now things are being changed and it's great. And I'm this like person who did this, yay, yay me. But at the same time, it just feels like, no, it's my body. I want to grieve after this. I want to be back in this. And I can't because it's being used and questioned. And, you know, it's an example, it's a thing. And it's so strange. So there is this line in the poem about the ants and watermelon, and it really made me feel very lonely just reading this line. For some reason, it made me feel like the watermelon and ants are all these people who are fighting for me at university. And it just makes me feel very lonely, you know? That's so thank you. Like, it was a scary poem to read. Yeah.
If I may, I would like to bring up another subject that you brought up, Alina, about getting into a car with a stranger. I know that getting into a car with a stranger for a female is quite a risk, but I just wanted to get some feedback from the guys. I mean, do you view getting into a car with the stranger as something that is almost like suicidal, or, you know, do you see that as something else?
So I'm you know, I'm trying to figure the number of times that I've gotten into a car with a stranger. I've gotten on a motorcycle with a stranger, which was certainly
Wow.
justifying.
Squared.
Yeah, I know. I was hitchhiking and a guy picked me up on a motorcycle. It was a chopper, even, with like a great big, you know, sissy bar on the back, which was just crazy. It was like out of some 70s movie.
I do that too, just for the record, even in my present mental state, which I think is sort of okay. Because at that point, you can feel out the person's vibe, plus they can't lock you in the car. Because most of the murder stories, because, you know, women grow up also reading this, it's like the murder stories are, I got into, like, there was a recent Uber, right? A girl from college was in a bar with many of her friends. She got into this car, there were people in plain sight. It was just like, she thought it was her Uber, it was not. The guy locked the door, she couldn't get out, and then she was dead, plumb decapitated, right? So it's like the lack of locks versus presence of locks are different. Anyway, Thaddeus, go on. Sorry.
No, that's okay. You know, I'm sure that, I mean, the number of times that I've said to Teresa, don't worry about me, I'm this great big scary guy, you know, I can walk home by myself or whatever. I mean, that pretty much underscores the fact that I would not feel the same way about getting in a car with a stranger as any of the women here would. Yeah, I don't know. And on top of that, it's like I said, I can't remember, like I can count on one hand the number of times I've gotten in the car with a stranger. I've been more afraid of people that I know in a car. So
yeah. Once my dad picked me up on a motorcycle without telling me that he would. I've never been on a motorcycle before, and it was probably the same as getting in a car with a stranger. As a woman, it's like getting on a bike with your dad, who decides that he can raise these young dudes in the cars. And so what? That with high heels, it doesn't mean anything.
No. Katie, I have a question for you. Did reading the poem make you feel in any way better? Like, was there any kind of cathartic effect, or did it just make you angry?
Oh, it got me really angry. Like, it got me really angry, this poem, you know, I guess in a good way. But I'm so angry at myself. And I think that's, like, I got really upset with this poem. I thought, oh my God, this is some sort of victimhood, you know? Like, I was really upset with her. Like, this is victim thinking. This is, I had all these thoughts that then I realized were thoughts addressed to me. So I wonder, maybe it is a cathartic. Maybe I will be crying in half an hour or something, you know? I don't know.
Because from
But yeah, like, definitely it brought emotions I didn't expect. Sorry?
Oh, from a bibliotherapy perspective, I guess then it worked, right? Like,
Yeah.
brought up emotions, you can become more aware of them. It's interesting.
Yeah. But I love that line about ants so much because I think it's so true. I used to, this was my weird story, maybe similar to Flaminia, you know, being in the country abroad when all the expectations are now different. I came to England and I basically realized that English is not British. And I really don't speak to anyone. And suddenly I really miss my family that I really want to leave. And everything was really scary. And I didn't know how to get on the bus. It was really fucking horrible. And at some point I had this thing that I would just go to cinema every day. So I would just go to cinema and cry on ads with car commercials, because they always had family in them. And I would be in the screen at 2 p.m. just like crying so much, like, oh my God, like coffee maker, car commercials, you know? Oh God.
I can totally see it. On that happy note, guys, let's vote. How do you feel about this poem? How many biscuits would you give it? Thaddeus?
I'm gonna give it 2, just for the reasons that I explained. One is like, I've got that feeling that I've got to get everything. And the other one is like, I could be mentally compromised right now because of a brain injury. I have no idea.
So really what you're saying is you would give it 3, but you're downgrading it to 2 because you might
No, I might, I mean, on a more clear day without a head injury, I might give it 0, right?
Okay.
So,
Well,
so I mean, so it's like, so the 2 biscuits are on me, actually. It's not on the poem, it's on me. I'm choking myself down with 2 biscuits is what I'm saying.
That's your need to get everything. I just want to say that. Okay, Teresa?
I'll give it 1. I guess maybe, you know, the past couple of years, you know, had me in a very kind of, I don't know, sympathetic to melancholiness, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's like a sad song. And sad songs aren't bad, and I think sad poems aren't bad. But it is sad. So 1 biscuit for me.
Flaminia?
I think I'm going to give it 1 biscuit too, because of the same reason that Thaddeus was talking about, which is not that I've had a concussion, but that I think I need to read it again. There's something that's right in between the lines and that I feel like I don't get yet, and that maybe it doesn't speak to me right now, and it will in another time, or maybe I need to, I don't know, focus more or pay more attention to the details, because there's a lot of details in it, a lot of images and metaphors, and you know, it really moves from the beginning to the end. So yeah, I'll probably go with 1 biscuit too.
Katie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 1 biscuit from me as well. I think actually because when I really love the poem is because, I don't know, there are just couples of in expressions that I just want to, you know, repeat every day before I go to sleep, literally. And I don't know if there were any lines in this poem that I want to just recite to myself. I like the poem, but nothing really hit me so much. So more generic feeling, but no lines, like specific lines, specific couplings of words that I want to just keep saying to myself. So 1 biscuit, you know. angrily gorging on it. Yes.
Carl?
It is also one biscuit for me because I appreciated the language and also the theme, but unfortunately it did not quite kick me in the heart balls hard enough to get no biscuits.
I have to say I would also give it 1 biscuit. But the thing is, I'm less generous than you guys because normally I would have given this poem 3 if it hadn't kicked me in the hard balls. Because realistically, I still don't understand what the hell it's talking about. And normally when that happens, I go, I'm an MBA, not an MFA. And that's why this is happening. This is all my fault. It's because I'm too stupid to understand this. It's not the poem, it's me. But wrong way of looking at it, because truly brilliant work works on multiple levels. You can understand it on level 1 and you might have to work to get level 2 or level 3, but you shouldn't have to work for level 1 for a work of genius that deserves 0 biscuits. You know what I mean? And that's why this doesn't meet for me the bar of the work of genius, but it passes the Chernikova line of, I felt the emotional impact was greater than the level of craft and obfuscation, because it still did kick me in the hard balls in spite of these clear flaws that you guys have all picked up on. And to me, it speaks to the in-between probably better than anything else that I've read. And so I would therefore, instead of 3 biscuits, give it 1, because to me, the hard balls were kicked. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I love you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.